Hello, it's Russ, and we're back again on the Infectious Groove Podcast YouTube channel. You should by now be listening to the Infectious Groove Podcast on all major podcast outlets. If you are not, stop what you're doing, go look that up, subscribe to that, then watch the rest of this video. In the first video, we talked a little bit about some of the audio equipment that's down here and what gives us the good sound that we share with everybody. Before, I mentioned we always have people over to the house to make sure to spin my common pressings, my rare pressings. People are always encouraged to bring their own music that I've never heard so that we can knock things off the walls and make it so loud and clear down here that everybody wants to share that love of music. So I wanted to just do a quick rundown of some of the equipment that we use. I'm going to start right here in the middle because if you're an audiophile and you found this video, you are probably saying, who is this guy talking to me about anything to do with being an audiophile when he has a Sony receiver at the helm of his system? This is not the helm of my system. This is, well, first of all, it's a Sony ES receiver, which is their higher line and could run a system like this, to be honest. If you know anything about Sony equipment, ES is really the line that could do a higher end audio experience, but I have this using it as more or less a glorified switcher, because what you can't see in the background is I have an Adcom GFA 7500 that is running this show. So all the power is coming from that Adcom amp, and it's perfectly matched for this whole system. It's running through here as a glorified switcher because we do listen to vinyl 70 to 90% of the time down here, but we got our little Bluetooth connector in case we need to find maybe something that's not out on vinyl yet, or something that hasn't been pressed on vinyl at all. Like earlier in the last video, I showed you the Warrant album Dog Eat Dog. I would love to own something like Ultraphobic or Belly to Belly on vinyl, but those are not even available on vinyl. So while we wait for the record labels to decide that that's something that people would buy, we can at least Bluetooth in and share that music with everybody digitally. How we share things on vinyl, we do it mostly through right here. Now, if you are a record collector and have looked at any YouTube video about turntables, you have seen this bad boy before. This is the Fluance RT85. I love everything about this turntable. Of course, you can go higher end than this. This turntable, I think, has an extremely low floor for noise. Really wide soundstage. It comes with the acrylic platter, which I love, is extremely low on static and takes out pretty much anything that you don't want to hear. Those impurities that you usually hear from vinyl, the pops and the clicks and the hisses, usually come from static. So I love that it comes with the acrylic platter that pretty much takes that out. The one thing you will see that I did different on here is the RT85 comes stock with an Ortofon 2M blue stylus. Prior to this turntable, I had already stepped up to the Ortofon 2M blue, or I'm sorry, the Ortofon 2M bronze. There is nothing wrong with an Ortofon 2M blue. So if you decide to buy the Fluance RT85, the stylus that it comes equipped with is fantastic. It will give you a much wider soundstage than you're used to. And more importantly, if you listen to a lot of those records from the late 80s or the early 90s, where the record labels didn't really care too much about the quality of the pressing, you will find a lot of intergroove distortion on those pressings. When you listen to it, you get a lot of sibilance, a lot of in your S's and your T's. That's what is being caused by intergroove distortion. You might take a record like, again, to reference Warrant, Cherry Pie, because of the time that it came out and the lower quality that the record labels really cared about vinyl as a format at the time. When you start that album on the outer ring, it sounds fantastic. As you get to the songs that are in the middle, the grooves are cut together quite a bit closer. Too many songs on one side, you end up with intergroove distortion. The Ortofon 2M blue that the RT85 ships with is a microline stylus, so it will get into those grooves in a way that other stylus don't. So when you put on some of those pressings that you already own, you may love them and think, well, why does every song in the middle of some of these pressings sound bad? The stylus that this turntable comes with takes that out of the equation for you ahead of time. I Personally, I'm a big fan of the bronze. That's the next step up from the blue, but I cannot stress enough, you cannot go wrong with the blue stylus that comes on this turntable out of the box. So you have that. That's obviously everything starts with the turntable. So that's the first time down here that a record is coming from any source to the rest of all of this. It's coming through a Fluance RT85 with that Ortofon 2M bronze stylus. Next stop directly on the turntable is, in my opinion, one of the best bargains for a preamp that you can get. We have the Clearaudio Nano V2, which you can see is the size of a deck of cards. It is tiny. This is an amazing preamp. The size is gonna fool so many people who are gonna look at this and think there's no way a good preamp can be that size. That preamp, out of everything I've ever tested, gives me the widest soundstage, it gives me the flattest EQ, and it gives me the best power. It works with moving magnet and moving coil cartridges, so if I ever decide to go even further up from the 2M bronze Ortofon, if I get into their next line, all I gotta do is change the jumper on the bottom, and I'm already up to that. I don't have to reinvest in another preamp, which is fantastic. Out of that, going down to the power, like I said, you can't see it on the floor, but there's an Adcom GFA 7500 giving all the power. It's coming up to here, which again is a glorified switcher. This is sending out all of the audio to two different sources. I've got Paradigm 3/4 inch bookshelf speakers. They qualify as bookshelf, but they're really in between floor standing and 3/4. You got the two drivers and then your tweeter at the top. So all of your mids and some lows are handled through these exceptionally well. But when you deal with a lot of power, you do need to get a sub in the mix. Again, you don't see it because it's down in the back, and I'm using the natural structure of the house as more or less an encasement for my subwoofer. I do have a 10-inch Velodyne subwoofer on the floor that is using the walls of the house to reverberate that sound all the way across. So I get very, very tight mids and high ends out of these paradigms because of the massive amount of clean power that they're getting from the Adcom amp on the floor. Then they're setting all of those mids and highs here. All the bass is going directly through the Velodyne because of that crossover. And all of those things together make for a situation that takes out almost every complaint you could hear about vinyl. Everybody says with vinyl, yeah, but the pops and the clicks. The acrylic platter on the RT85 by and large takes care of that problem for us. Then a lot of people say, oh, well, what about late 80s or early 90s pressings? And you just can't get them to sound good because of that intergroove distortion. Your Ortofon stylus that comes on this, again, the blue that comes with it takes care of that. Then most people worry about, well, yeah, but can it be loud and clear at the same time? If you know anything about audio equipment, the Adcom GFA 7500 is more power than we need, even in this size of a room. Then to make sure that the right frequencies are going to the right area and being split, all makes for that experience that when people tell you, oh, you haven't heard that album till you've heard it on vinyl, this is what they're talking about. And you can find equipment like this. The RT85, I think, is a bargain at $499 as of the making of this video. I do believe in the future this is going to become a less kept secret and more people are going to know about this, and the Fluance brand is probably going to go up in cost. But as of the making of this video, you can get this for $499. To give you an idea of what a deal that is, the Ortofon blue stylus that comes installed on the turntable is usually around a $250 stylus on its own. So that is quite a deal. But the rest of this stuff, your Adcom equipment, these Paradigm speakers that they don't even make anymore, use the resources that are out there. Facebook Marketplace, go on Discogs, go in their forums, look for people that are selling some of this higher end equipment, and some of this is vintage, some of it's not. But look for that equipment that way. Don't automatically go out and think that you need to spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 so you're not in the Crosley Club, so you're not in just a low end turntable and think that you have to spend so much money to get excellent sound. if you look for the right deals, you can find some stuff from people who, when they start collecting material like this and these pieces like this, they really take good care of it, so you don't need to worry about getting junk from places like that. And look for reputable sellers. Make sure that you're using all of the available tools of the internet so that you can put together a system like this and really hear what you're supposed to be hearing on vinyl. Why people say that, oh, you haven't heard it till you've heard it on vinyl. It's very easy to put systems like this together. That's a little bit of a rundown of what we're doing here as far as audio. This system hasn't evolved in quite a while. Usually that's the number one thing that people get, is when you start buying systems, you start swapping out pieces and you always feel like you have to upgrade. Everything that I've got here I think sounds fantastic. So make sure that you subscribe to this channel, like this video, share this video. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Infectious Groove podcast, because on the show I always say, oh, I have that on vinyl, or we were just listening to that on vinyl. This is where it all happens. Then in the future, make sure to watch for the next videos that we have, because in our first video I talked about a lot of the rare pressings that we have. We're going to start going down that road pretty soon. Make sure to leave a comment in addition to your like for some of the artists that you love, or maybe some pressings you'd like to know if I have, and we'll be more than happy to start with the most popular ones first. Thanks a lot.